Yo, what's going on, legends? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope your day has been amazing so far, man. So, a little bit something different today. I kind of thought we'd do a revamp of the old Blight add-on tier list, since it's been quite a while since we last did it, and there have been many changes. So, the goal of this one is to try and identify, obviously what is the best, what is the worst, kind of talk a little bit about them, and I might be able to kind of give you guys a few little secret tips and tricks about these add-ons that you guys may not have known beforehand, so stick around for those ones. There might be a couple, kind of secret extra bits with these add-ons that aren't described when you click on them. So, first up is going to be the Iridescent Blight tag. So, this one's kind of funny, actually. So, when this one first came out, it was kind of hilarious, because everyone thought it was garbage. Like, everyone was like, nah, what are the chances that you have 5 rushes and you end up hitting them with the last one? Like, you can't force it. And I was sat there, like, in, the day that Blight released. Like, what are you talking about? This is so busted. Admittedly, it's definitely more busted when you combine it with other things. On its own, it's pretty strong. But, if you combine it with, like, the Alchemist ring, game over. Like, the most brutal add-on combination you could possibly imagine. There's then the, the green speed. You could then, add the Blighted Crow to make the watermelon build. There's quite a lot of kind of gnarly things you could do. But on its own, just, keep in mind, right, it sounds kind of crazy, but we have an add-on that allows Blight, who's one of the strongest killers in the game, to have a base kit insta-down. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, easy S tier, no questions asked, man. Next up is Compound 33, also extremely strong. Similar to the Blight tag, it's going to be an add-on that gets better and better depending on what you kind of combine it with, but it's not as dependent. So basically what C33 does is it allows you to break a pallet at pretty much the exact same speed that Bubba or Billy would with their chainsaws, right? But there's a difference. If you remember those chainsaw killers, you would remember that you have to charge up a pretty lengthy chainsaw to actually get it to work, right? Not with Blight. Blight has absolutely no build up to it. All you gotta do is right click and boom, the pallet's gone. Now combine it with the Adrenaline Vial, and the Adrenaline Vial is gonna be really interesting. Stick around for that one, man. But combine it with the Adrenaline Vial, and the fatigue is so quick from recovering from breaking that pallet that you literally can rush again before the fatigue's even gone. It's actually busted. Not only that, but then it also has 2 other ones. I mean, technically it has 1 other described side effect. There's also a secret one, which is kind of interesting. But C33 also will allow you to hinder survivors, which makes them go a little bit slower. It's not a massive change, but a good survivor can notice a big difference in their kind of like their ability to get to windows, to kind of like perform fast vaults, stuff like that. So that can be quite gnarly, especially considering the fact you have, 5 rushes base kit, and all 5 of those can then continue to hinder the survivor. It's kind of insane. The third kind of secret aspect of it is similar to what I'm going to discuss with Compound 21, which is this green one down here. So basically, what you can do, you can kind of find people through walls. So in the top right of your screen, right around here, that's where you're going to be awarded, like, points for things. For example, like hooking people, closing the hatch, blah, blah, blah. But did you know you also get awarded points for revealing people with not only Compound 21, but also Compound 33? Now, yes, Compound 21 will show you the auras, but Compound 33 will tell you that you've been awarded points when someone is within that radius, right? And it's a relatively big radius. It's what, like 6-8 meters or something like that? So you can literally discover if someone's hiding behind a wall without even being able to see them. It's kind of like built-in wall hacks. So if this add-on wasn't already powerful enough, dude, it's genuinely up there. It's kind of busted. Next up, my beloved, man, it is the Alchemist ring. Very, very simple. Every time you get a rush hit or a successful lethal rush hit on a survivor, you end up getting all of your rushes back. Combine this with, obviously, things like green speed, yellow speed, T21, Iridescent Blight tag. It just kind of goes perfectly with everything. And the really crazy part about the Alchemist ring is it's a really strong add-on that doesn't really have any downside, It doesn't take anything away from you, doesn't make you slower, doesn't make you have to recharge longer, nothing. The only real downside to the Alchemist ring is it does take a little bit of skill to use. As in, if you're new to Blight and you don't hit the majority of your flicks, then you're not really going to kind of benefit anything from the Alchemist ring, right? Because it only gives you your rushes back if you land them. If you don't land them, then absolutely nothing gets changed. So it's still extremely strong. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for someone that is like brand new, because it's probably a waste of a purple add-on, to be fair. But at the same time, On the contrary, I probably would recommend it to someone that's kind of like getting their feet wet with Blight a little bit, and they're starting to land their flicks. And you know, the main reason I'd recommend it is that it gives you that little bit more chance to practice your rushing, right? I always say, a lot of people recommend when you first start playing Blight, don't rush everywhere. I say the exact opposite, man. Rush as much as you can. Try and learn the collision, learn the maps as kind of like, you know, inside and out as you can. Because like, although you're probably going to fail the majority of your rushes at the beginning, you're going to learn so much about collision and where you can rush, how you can do the flicks, how you can play around certain tiles, and that is way more important than learning, you know, to just get to a tile and be like, you know what, I don't know how to rush this one, I'm just going to play an M1 killer. You know, that's boring. We don't play Blight for the boring stuff. We play Blight for the Alchemist ring. So, yeah, the Alchemist ring, unbelievable. I'd honestly maybe stick it above the Blight tag, but honestly, both of them are pretty insane. The only reason I'd stick it above the Blight tag is because of its universal kind of like application, right? The Iridescent Blight tag on certain maps is going to be very hard to use, things like Larry's RPD. Alchemist ring works everywhere, any tile, anytime, you know? It's pretty insane. Viggo's Journal is an interesting one. It's a really fun add-on, but it's one that you don't really notice the benefit from killer side, right? Because basically what it does is it makes you, it's kind of the same as the perk Insidious, if you know that one. So every time you rush, you lose your terror radius, right? You have no red stain, you lose your terror radius, you become kind of like a ninja Blight. Now, this is fantastic, but at the same time, when you're playing killer, you don't really feel that, right? You don't feel yourself being Insidious from killer side. So I really think you have to play against the Blight that's running this to really see how powerful it is, but it is really good. And if you combine it again with the Alchemist ring, the C33, or the Iridescent Blight tag, you're going to see a bit of a pattern here. All these add-ons are pretty good. But if you combine it with any of those top ones, you can really kind of sneak up on survivors and get them, you know, kind of catch them off guard before they're able to get anywhere. And that can honestly be, you know, make or break between ending a chase super quickly. Next up is going to be... Okay, so 𝗧𝘄𝗶𝘁𝗰𝗵. I'm not too convinced that this actually works. Okay, hear me out on this one. So the idea with the way it's supposed to work is that you rush kind of within a certain radius to someone doing a gen, or they're working on some kind of skill check, whatever survivors do these days, I don't know. And it's supposed to give them a really hard skill check. But I've tested it in custom games, and I swear that it just doesn't give me the skill check 9 times out of 10. What I think there's some kind of secret parameter that we're not told about, where it can only activate every X seconds, or it can only there's some kind of like other activation you know, kind of parameter that we're not really told about. So I wouldn't recommend it's okay if you're going to be playing a map like Midwich or Gideon, a stacked map, maybe you can get some value out of it, but missing skill checks isn't exactly the worst thing ever. You know, it's not the best thing, it's not the worst thing. I'm gonna say pretty solidly in C tier for now. Might change. Summoning Stone. Okay, so again, hear me out on this one, man. I'm probably going to say that a lot today. I do apologize, but Summoning Stone is absolutely insane. It didn't used to be. It didn't last long enough. It also didn't really have the radius, but now they buffed it. I think it was a couple patches ago they buffed it. And so it's kind of like the perk Blood Favor, but in add-on form. So you hit a survivor, and in this pretty massive radius, which is basically like a sphere as well. So think anywhere on your floor, but also above and below you, it's kind of nuts. Every pallet is blocked for a pretty sizable amount of time. Now, combine that with Alchemist Ring, Green Speed, Yellow Speed, even things like C21, you can block survivors off from any kind of like location that might be safe to them. And yeah, they're just kind of left there, you know, with nothing remaining, you know? Think of a map like Gideon. Gideon really has no safe, you know, tiles to play around if the pallets are gone. And so you hit someone with this. Let's say you're not even combining it with like the Green Speed or the Alchemist Ring or anything like that. You hit them with the Summoning Stone, and where do they go? Like they walk forwards, that pallet's gone, and that pallet's gone, and that one's gone. It's, you know, unless they got dead hard, unbreakable, they got like 1,000,000 second chances. There's no way they're gonna survive that. And even then, the Blight is probably just gonna, you know, whiff on their dead hard and then still get them down because the pallets are still blocked. It's kind of mind blowing. If you haven't tried this one, you've got to. It is so much fun. Next up is going to be Green Speed. The Blighted Crow is pretty fun. I would argue this is probably number 1 or 2 on my list as far as like fun add-ons go. Because it's not a case of it just making you faster like the engravings do on Billy, for example. It makes you faster every consecutive rush, right? So your first rush is normal speed, second one gets faster, and then so on until your 5th rush is the fastest you can go. Now, combine this with something like the Adrenaline Vial, where you get 7 rushes, you are going insanely fast. In fact, I think we calculated that if you use double speed and play with your food, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗵, Devour Hope, you can get like 370%, right? Which is bonkers. It is so fast. And so the main kind of, appeal of that is the ability to catch up with survivors that are, holding W or trying to go from tile to tile, trying to get to a pallet before you do, anything like that, even with Dead Hard. Green speed is so good for kind of like shortening those gaps. Not a whole lot. I mean, everyone knows this add-on, absolutely phenomenal. I would say maybe even better than the Eerie Blight tag on the basis that it's just incredibly... I mean, maybe it'd even be better than the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗵. I'm not too sure. On the basis that you can get so many hits that you wouldn't normally get. But they're all kind of like synonymous, so I'm going to put it about there. Yeah, really good add-on. Next up is going to be the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗵. So the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗉 are kind of interesting, because prior to this new update, I would have told you they were pretty garbage. In fact, I think anyone that's not currently playing on console or on very, very low DPI, if you're not used to flicking and Blight's kind of like regular turn rate, then to me, the turn rate is kind of pointless, in my opinion. And I want to clarify exactly what that means real quick. So, there are 2 terms that are typically used when it comes to Blight turning or flicking, right? There's the turn rate, and there is the look angle, right? So the look angle is how much you can turn before you basically are at your absolute maximum and you start to drift, right? That's kind of like what allows you, if you've ever tried or seen my gameplay, probably put a link on screen if you're interested, by the way, of like the Adrenaline Vial, you can kind of look 90 degrees, and then stack a 90 flick on top of that, which is Blight's normal flick. That's how you get those crazy 180s, right? The actual turn rate is kind of the opposite. It's your total drift amount whilst just turning in a rush, right? It's nothing to do with like your look angle and how far you can look before you flick. It's purely the amount that you can drift. Imagine like a car on its axis, and the axis is just going a little bit further. You're not actually rotating on your side, you're not driving sideways, you're just rotating, if that makes sense. So the turn rate doesn't affect your flicks whatsoever. Just wanted to clarify that, but at the same time, now it's pretty viable because it combines it with the Adrenaline Vial. So both of those are going to kind of be together roughly on its own. Again, if you play on low DPI or you're relatively new to like console Blight and you're not really used to the turning, one of the big benefits of the turn rate add-ons is they give you a little bit more time to react to things, right? So for example, you're running a survivor and they turn a different direction or they try and spin you, things like that. This gives you that little bit extra time to react to them to then try and guarantee that flick before they inevitably kind of miss you, right? Eventually you're not going to lead it. It's a pretty good one to learn with, but at the same time, be careful because you don't want to start to rely on these add-ons, right? I think eventually you get to the point where you don't really need them because your timing and your muscle memory is pretty good, but as far as learning goes, fantastic. C tier for now though, probably not as good as the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗵, but still pretty good. However, when combined, here we go. This is what I've been talking about. Loads of people coming into streams, man, and they're like, hey, Lilith, what's up with the Adrenaline Vial? I thought that thing was absolute garbage. You are totally correct. This thing was the worst add-on in the game. Again, I should probably clarify because I think a lot of people have been getting this mixed up. So what exactly has changed about the Adrenaline Vial? So best way to explain it is there have been 3 stages of the Adrenaline Vial, right? So there was the original Adrenaline Vial, which sucked. The recharge time was not that different. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was pretty much the same. All it did was give you the extra rushes and the extra look angle. I will specify, though, the look angle has always been enhanced. As in, the kind of J-flicks, the 180 flicks that we're doing right now, have literally been there since the beginning of the Adrenaline Vial's release, even back when Blight first came out. However, big difference is that they weren't really usable because the rest of the add-on was so it was so bad that no one even wanted to play to get the spicy flicks. So, in the second update, which was the more recent one, that's when they made the recharge quicker, and they also made it so it made you move quicker, right? They increased the speed that it gave you, which was nice, but at the same time, it was still 80% turn reduction, which sucks. I don't know if you've ever tried the original Adrenaline Vial, but 80% turn reduction is pretty sizable. It is not a whole lot of fun. You're basically like a fleshy pinball machine, you know? You look at an object, and if that's not where you want to go, then you're kind of screwed, you know? That's where you're going. Whereas now, with the most recent kind of patch, they buffed it so that the turn restriction is only 55%, so 30% was kind of like knocked off the top of it, which, you know, little pro tip, can then be reduced by an extra 15%, so it's only 40% overall, which honestly doesn't feel that much different, as long as you're not doing crazy specific movements. Again, it might take some practice, but it doesn't feel that much different to the OG Blight movement, right? Which is great. When you stack both of these, the Adrenaline Vial and the Umbra Salts. Overall, yeah, so you then have the, you know, the fact that your rush recharges twice as quickly. Instead of being 1 rush per 2 seconds, it's 1 rush per 1 second, so it's 7 seconds for 7 rushes, which is insane. You then have the extra look angle, so it's spicy as fuck. You get like these insane J flicks and stuff, you know, smashing down Claudettes left, right, and center, man. That near over, you know, in the corner of Shaq. This thinks, you know, she totally thinks she's safe. Slap in the back of the head, man. Down she goes. Oh, dude, it's so much fun. You gotta try it. Yeah, Adrenaline Vial, genuinely, however, okay, before I get ahead of myself, and I just tell you guys this is the greatest add-on of all time, it's not. It's not gonna make you a better Blight overnight. It's not some kind of like, you know, winning secret recipe to just being an instantly good Blight main. Not quite. Is it better than any of these top ones? No. Because all it does is give you the extra rushes, so there is more chance for you to kind of get back into the zone if you fail, which is good, but again, don't want to rely on it just in case you want to take this add-on off, take it off, or if you run out of it, for example. By extension, yes, the flicks are spicy, but you don't want to start to rely on that muscle memory being your only way of landing these flicks, right? It's extremely fun. I wouldn't say it's the most powerful, but it is extremely fun. To the point I cannot, you know, press enough. It feels super nostalgic, because it kind of feels like how old Blight used to feel, but with no overflicks. It's pretty, it's pretty phenomenal. Definitely check out the Adrenaline Vial. Next up is the Compound 21, which is the basically like a wall hack add-on, so you can see survivors' auras through walls when you bounce near them. Now, you know, I kind of explained something pretty similar with C33 earlier on, which is where when you're using this add-on, a pro tip is not to actually bounce into something and then frantically look around, right? You don't want to be like looking around, you know, like, oh, where's the survivor? You know, every single time you bounce, because I mean, firstly, you're going to get really disoriented and you're probably going to throw up. But like, secondly, it's not necessary, because when you bounce into something and there's a survivor nearby, you actually get awarded points for revealing a survivor. I will preface, it doesn't give you points if they're inside a locker. It used to be really busted. You used to be able to find survivors in lockers. Not anymore, sadly. But yeah, if you bounce into something, always keep an eye in the top right of your screen. If it says Compound 21 Reveal, or simultaneously Compound 33 Reveal, that's when you turn around and try and find them, right? It's pretty insane. It kind of takes the mind gaming out of tiles and things. Like, you can't really mind game a Blight around LT walls and things like that when you got this add-on, because you can see exactly what they're doing. And yeah, there's really just nothing they can do, especially if you're going to hug tech it. It's fantastic for hug teching, because you bounce into something, and let's say you're around like a trash tile in like Haven, right? There's a pallet in front of you, there's a car in front of you, but to hug tech it, you want to look down, right? So what's going to end up happening is that you look down, and then the survivor can just be like, you know what? I don't care about this Blight, man. This Blight's kind of crazy. He's looking down at this car, man. I don't know whether he's trying to sell me it or something, but I'm leaving. I'm going straight over to that gen, and I'm going to swear the M1. You know? So what you can do in that situation is you can use Compound 21 to bounce into the car, look down enough that you can hug tech, but down, you like right at the top of your screen, you can still see their aura. Are they still standing there? Have they moved? Have they held W? Are they on the other side of the truck now? All of that you can identify, and then basically take all the guesswork out of the hug teching. It's kind of insane. Really good for learning hug techs, but at the same time, similar to most of the Blight stuff, don't get too used to it, because you don't want it to be something that you start to rely on, right? I think C21 is definitely an add-on that can really be quite detrimental if you start to get addicted to it, because you know, like I was saying earlier, it's very easy to play around tiles and things like that. And so if you play it too much, you'll start to rely on the fact that, like, you know, you'll be sat there, you're like, hey, I don't know what this survivor is, and I'm used to being told the information, so therefore I don't know, you know. So yeah, C21 awesome. Probably honestly, up here, I would actually argue better than Adrenaline Vial. It's pretty insane. In fact, it's so good you do see it in some comp games. Yeah, really good. So next up is the Rose Tonic. Rose Tonic is basically an add-on that increases your slam duration. So your slam duration is normally 1.25 seconds, which doesn't seem like very long, but it's actually quite a long time. I mean, you know, to be fair, 30 seconds in DBD feels like You know, I mean, you know, sorry. So 30 seconds in the real world feels like a million years in DBD. That's what I was gonna say. So, you know, 1.5 seconds, 1.25 seconds in the real world feels like, I don't even know. I could probably watch the entirety of The Lord of the Rings in that amount of time in the average Blight game. You know, it feels like so long. So what you can do with this is it gives you more time to kind of think. You don't have to panic so much. Also, if you're new to Blight and you find yourself bumping into things and kind of spinning out, which is quite common, it gives you more time to adjust and kind of get your grounding again. A little pro tip as well, something that is not discussed in the add-on description, is it also increases your movement speed whilst in slam. What I mean by that is if you've ever tried, for example, hug teching or just moving whilst in slam, like getting through a doorway, you can kind of shimmy whilst in your slam duration. Now, I don't know exactly why. I've got a pretty good idea why this happens, but with these slam duration add-ons, they also increase the shimmy speed. Without getting too nerdy, it's really, really useful. Especially if you're learning Blight and you're struggling to get through doorways, which I know is a really problematic thing for a lot of people that are brand new to the character. So yeah, really, really good. Again, another one, don't get too used to it, but maybe stick on some of the dust or something. Really, really good. Next up is going to be the yellow speed. Yellow speed is going to be swiftly all the way up here, probably better than Viggo's journal, but not better than Summoning Stone, not even close. So pretty much identical as to what was said about the Blighted Crow, just not as good. It's not as sizable a difference, but you can feel it. If you're running it on its own, it's pretty good. If you don't have any crows left, which if you're like me and you love running speed Blight, the yellow one will suffice most of the time. Next one is the Cankerthorn. So these ones are interesting because I guess they're designed for like new Blights, and I usually recommend them because there's no real downside to them. Basically what they do is they reduce your fatigue time, right? So you rush and then you swing and then they reduce the fatigue. However, they only reduce missed attack fatigue. Very, very specific. If you are good at if you're good at playing Blight and you're good at landing your flicks, this will literally do nothing for you. Like, literally nothing. If you're brand new to Blight though, and on the contrary, you also miss a lot of your flicks, then this one and the Foxglove, both of these, should be pretty good actually, because it significantly alters the amount of fatigue time you have, although at the same time there is then the drawback that although the fatigue is less long and you can get back into the chase and into like an M1 play quicker, your recharge is the same, right? So how can I word this so it makes sense? So you swing a survivor, you're chasing them and you miss, you then recover from the fatigue quicker, as in like the injection animation's quicker, but the actual recharge time for your so you can rush again is still the same. So it's going to be longer until you can rush, if that makes sense. They're kind of interesting add-ons. If you're brand new to Blight, then yeah, I'd recommend them. In general, though, not super strong. I think I'm going to put them... They're both pretty similar. They both do the same thing. I'm going to put them in C for now, purely because there are some pretty absolutely detrimental add-ons that are going to be reserved for the lower bowels of hell in D tier. They're pretty awful. Next up is going to be the Plague Vial, which... a little bit of, completely useless information, is actually vial collected from the plague, as in like Adderus, right? Pretty interesting stuff. In fact, actually, which is the one? I think it's C. I think it's the Adrenaline Vial, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or the Rose. Wait, hold on. It might be Rose Tonic. Oh no, I forgot. Okay, I'm gonna call it a Rose Tonic. It's actually in reference to the oh, what do they call it? The Pale Ruse, the Pale Moon, stuff. Do you remember, like, right when the game first came out, there were, like, the offerings that like, make the game darker and lighter? Well, this one actually references those offerings, in the ingredients, which I think is, a pretty cool little, little bit of lore treats for Blight players. At the same time, completely pointless, so I'm going to move on from that one. I probably completely butchered it anyway. So next up is going to be the yellow turn rate, which, to be honest, is very similar to the Umbra Salts, just not really as good. It's kind of pretty minimal. Would I use it with the Adrenaline Vial? No. Would I use it on its own? No. But maybe if you're brand new, again, if you play on, like, I don't know, Switch or something, and you really struggle with getting the timing right to flick someone, then it could help. But don't expect it to make your flicks better. The turn rate does not affect the amount that you can flick, just the amount you can turn and the speed you can turn before you actually have to commit to that flick, if that makes sense. So yeah, not great. I'll probably move a couple of these around, actually. I can see a couple that I might modify. Next up is going to be the other the other slam duration add-on. This is going to be the dust. Very similar to Rose Tonic, except you get a little bit less time. To be honest, both of them give you enough time. Once you've learned that the 1.25 seconds of base Blight is enough anyway, just adding one extra, as in again, how can I word this? So this one gives you a lot of extra time, but most of the time you don't need that much extra time, right? Whereas when you use this one, I honestly don't really feel like I realize which one I'm using, because most of the time I'm so used to how that 1.25 seconds lasts, and how that 1.25 second base kind of slam duration feels, that when I put this one on, it just gives me that little bit extra time. So both of them pretty good. If you really enjoy sitting there for ages and just watching survivors, man, stick both of these on, and it's so funny, man. Like, if you've never tried sticking on both slam duration add-ons, running a survivor that you know is injured and has dead hard, and you just stare at them, you got 3 whole seconds of playtime to just stare them down. Like, yep, I ain't moving till you use that E key, man. It's phenomenal. It's so good. As far as where it goes in a tier list, not as good as green turn rate. Probably, yeah, not as good as 𝗂𝘄𝗶𝘁𝗰𝗵 either. It's okay. It's fine, And then we have shredded notes. Shredded notes is a weird one, because I know a lot of people love this one, and I don't really get it personally. So all it does is it gives you, it takes away one of your rushes, but it gives you much quicker recharge time, right? Which I'm pretty sure is like 30% or so. Don't quote me on it, but it's something around there. A lot of people have been combining it with the adrenaline vial recently, but I don't really see much point in it. It's very rare, especially with the adrenaline vial. Like I was saying, you get your rushes back so quickly that I don't really feel like there's many situations that you're really gonna need that 0.3 second per token. It's not gonna be the difference between winning and losing a match, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, there could be very specific situations where you want to do like an instant flick, someone's running towards like an LT wall window or something, and you could just about clutch it. But again, a lot of Blight comes down to patience anyway. If you ever see my streams or see my gameplay, you know that the most important thing I always kind of preach about Blight is patience. Although he's the quickest killer in the game, you can, rush around everywhere. He's kind of crazy. You want to be very kind of, again, patient to watch survivors, slam near them, see what kind of direction they're going, how are they playing, kind of identify their moveset. You want to kind of zone them. You want to make sure that you get inside their head, and so you make sure that you don't move until you guarantee that flick, right? You see someone behind a tree, you don't just run up to it and flick behind the tree, right? You go up to the tree and you bounce it, and they still don't move, so you bounce it again, and eventually the survivor will panic, and then they move. And as soon as you see them in that really vulnerable spot, that's when you take advantage. That's the main idea. So yeah, again, kind of off topic, but when it comes down to getting your rushes back quicker, I don't think it's worth the detriment of then having, one less rush. Personally, although I know a lot of people do enjoy this one sometimes, so it's totally fair. Next up is going to be the monocle. Now, so 2 parts of the monocle. Firstly, I do kind of feel like the real way of determining how committed to Blight you are, if you're a real Blight main, is to see how many monocles you've collected, because honestly, that's kind of all they're good for. The monocle is similar to the flannel for the nurse, so it will show you a little ring in front of you. It kind of feels like you're playing a Sonic game. You just see this golden ring in front of you, and you're just always chasing it, but it's kind of like this weird existential version where you never actually get the ring. It's weird. However, there are some fundamental problems with it. Firstly, all it does is it shows you the ring in front of you. It doesn't try to identify collision. It doesn't tell you what you can and can't bounce off of. If you want to see what I'm talking about, take this add-on to somewhere like Omen, right? And try rushing into the snow. It will literally just put it on every piece of snow, despite the fact the game knows that you cannot rush into it. So that firstly is not helpful for new Blight players, and if it's not helpful for new Blight players who are learning the collision, which in most maps is kind of tricky, then who is it good for, right? It kind of looks funny, to be fair. If you want it purely for aesthetics, it's kind of cool. And again, if you want to collect it, just want to have like 100 million of them in your inventory, then be my guest, be the truest Blight main of all time. Yeah, not great. And also, one other thing, and I'm assuming this is just a bit of an oversight or some kind of bug, but sometimes it can show you that you're gonna bounce into something that you can't hit. Because the other argument is that they'd be like, oh, hey, but, okay, Lilith, what happens is it's not there to show you what you can and can't bump into, it's just there to show you the distance so that you know you can bump into it. But again, not true. there's actually about 0.5 meter to maybe 0.75 of a meter that it shows you that you're able to reach that you cannot actually reach, which I think is just fundamentally so broken, right? So imagine you're a brand new Blight player, you're like, hey, this is kind of like the flannel, I want to go and use this one, and then boom, you try and use it, you see something in the distance where you really, really want to land, and you just don't make it. You'd be like, what is the point? You know? Yeah, Monocle, pretty shite. And now we're getting on to even worse add-ons. We then have Compound 7. This thing sucks. So Compound 7 will automatically face you in the direction of the nearest survivor within a certain range, obviously, every time you bump into an object, right? Which sounds ideal, especially if you play on, you know, again, if you're on like the Switch and you never played Blight before. I don't really want to have like, you know, super accurate turning and shit. Yeah, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. But at the same time, it's also it's so disorienting, and you never learn the muscle memory. So if as soon as you take Compound 7 off, you're going to be completely lost. I think on top of that, there's also a big problem where if there's two people around you, like for example, there's one to your right, there's one to your left, maybe they're body blocking, or maybe they're going for like an unhook. That can be really confusing because you bounce into a wall and then you instantly turn, like you just flick out, you know, like 90 degrees, and now you're facing the near, even though you were chasing the thing, and now you don't know which direction you're facing. It's just really confusing, and I don't think it really helps anyone. Even as like an advanced Blight player, I don't think I've ever gotten any real value from it other than just being really weirded out, you know? It's kind of interesting. There's no other add-on in the game that feels like this one, but would I recommend it? No, not in the slightest. And then last of all, which is probably not the worst add-on, it's not as detrimental as Compound 7. Compound 7 to me is the only remaining truly bad add-on, you know, that is left for Blight. Other than that, I mean, you know, Adrenaline Vial is now all the way up here somehow, and the monocle isn't necessarily bad, it's just not useful, you know? The Adrenaline, no, sorry, I always kind of think of those two together, you know? Like back in the day, it would be Adrenaline Vial and Placebo Tablet. Those two, you don't really want to touch. So Placebo Tablet, basically, I mean, you know, all it does just makes you slower. It would have been way funnier if it was actually a placebo tablet where it made you think something was happening when actually it does literally nothing. That would have been kind of funny. But yeah, it just makes you slower and then gives you some more blood points. But the blood points only total up to the normal amount that you get anyway, right? So it's not like barbecue and chili where you get extra blood points on top of the blood points you already got in that game, you know, the 32,000. It just helps you get to that 32,000 quicker. So you're not really gaining anything. If you have a perfect Blight game, you're still going to earn that 32,000. So in that way, it's pointless. For the, you know, exact opposite reasons why I say that the speed are the you know, some of the best add-ons in the game, this is one of the worst ones because it just takes away your ability to catch survivors before they're able to get places, right? You're not going to catch them going to the window. You're not going to catch them going to the pallet. Maybe it will give you a little bit more time to react to the dead hard, but that's it. And again, it's very situational, and even then, it might not help. Yeah, Placebo Tablet, very simply, pretty shite. So let me just go back over this. Make sure I haven't put anything somewhere that I don't think it should be. I don't think that Viggo's Journal's as good as the Blighted Rat, but they are different add-ons fundamentally. I'd probably move a couple of these up. I think that this probably deserves to be in B tier. I think the Soul Chemical does work sometimes, but there's some kind of weird parameter that we don't know about. I'm certain, dude. I'm so certain. Honestly, I'd be half tempted to go for a list like this. I mean, you know, like again, like I was saying, anything in S tier can kind of be rotated around. The Blight tag in many situations, I've had countless numbers of survivors DC because we've gone, you know, had like a 50-second 4K that they could never recover from, right? Same as like, you know, the Alchemist ring, Blighted Crow, C33. All of those are really tricky to play around. So I think that any of these in different situations, different maps will always be considered one of the best. It's just like to me, I would probably put them in this order kind of universally, but again, it can change around based on map. So yeah, hopefully that explains everything. If you have any questions at all, do leave them in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys watching. It has been, what, like a 30-minute video or so, but it's fine, man. It's fine. Loads of information. Again, make sure to subscribe, comment, like the video, all that good shit, man. We stream on Twitch 4 days a week if you want to come and hang out. Have an amazing week, legends, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.